Okay, so I was thinking, Moreno. So do you have a question for Renee now that she presented the plan and what the vision and goals and the policy actions that they are planning to take in the during the coming years until 250? Do you have any burning
Yeah.
questions that you would like to ask?
Well, our group is well aware of phase two of the transportation plan update. In fact, the pandemic network, as we outlined, it goes to a great degree to feature the 2030 core network of routes. So we definitely use that to inform the plan to support cycling. And I didn't cover it in my presentation, but infrastructure and creating safe, efficient spaces is critical to growing volumes. So that's sort of the assumption I left out, but that is well supported. So that's why that infrastructure and that network is so important, even more so than the lane kilometers of bikeways that you have, is that they're in a connected network. So we're consulting with the city actually, I think next week. So we'll be meeting to discuss phase two and its plans. And as I think somebody already remarked in the comments section, 2050 is a long way out. Vision zero by 2050. That's I'll be 60 years old by that time, and I would like something a little bit sooner. And if we can front load the development of the core cycling network, even by 5 years to 2025, that will be a boon for cycling in Burnaby.
Okay, so I just was wondering, could you mention about the importance of the safe mandate, the zero emissions vehicle mandate, and I'm glad to see that more than 60% of the people that you responded survey were positive about this new mandate. So how uh, how are you expecting about the improving charging stations, for example, spaces in the future, or accelerating the charging time? So, but I think this might be some of the potential barriers for consumers, for people that are interested in buying zero emission vehicles. So, what could you comment on that, please?
Yeah, definitely. So that's a really good question, highlighting that there's a number of barriers in place that will prevent people from adopting electric vehicles, and charging infrastructure is one of them. A number of other barriers exist, including people not even really knowing that electric vehicles are good options for them. So awareness piece, as well as access to buying an electric vehicle in the make and the model that you desire. So it's a model variety piece. In terms of charging infrastructure specifically, we found that most people actually charge their vehicles at home, and public charging infrastructure seems to drive preferences a lot less. A recent paper that my group published found actually a limited role of public charging infrastructure in encouraging electric vehicle sales. That being said, it's a little bit of a chicken and egg problem. So it could be that lack of charging infrastructure right now isn't something that drives demand because it's not there yet. And once the infrastructure is there, particularly on highways for people who want to drive longer distances, and people who aren't able to charge at home, this will become increasingly important. And actually, that was a question I wanted to ask Renee, is if the city of Burnaby in their plan has any steps towards increasing infrastructure for charging, and in particular in homes and buildings. So some cities are moving towards requiring that new buildings, including multi-family buildings and single-family buildings and condos and apartments, like require charging infrastructure to be ready to be roughed in. So is that part of the city of Burnaby's plans yet?
Yes, so within our driving section of the plan, we are looking at how to facilitate both public and private sustainable infrastructure options. And so that includes, even now within our buildings that are, you see all the new development happening, they are including electric infrastructure to be able to actually charge your vehicle at home. And then in addition to that, we are working on an EV policy at the city right now. And so that is all moving forward. We have an EV pilot project happening. There's a whole number of things that are happening in conjunction. And I'd also add that we are, Burnaby declared a climate emergency earlier this year, sort of late last year. And we're working on the climate action strategy that goes with that. So that will also play a key part. All of these things are starting to work together to really bring our goals in alignment with our actions.
Okay, I see there is a couple of questions that are coming from, well, some questions are coming from on the chat. So Andrea Hadley, she commented that she's very encouraged to hear that the city of Burnaby is considering the importance of land use in transportation planning. So what type of policies are being considered in this area? For example, will there be a move forward adding distributed density in single families? And also there is another question from Megan Winters related to can the city of Burnaby discuss actions that may be taken towards slow streets, as well as the potential toward making them permanent?
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there.
Mm-hmm.
So to start with, yes, we're fully integrating our transportation with our land use components. And in coming up, like we're starting to work on the official community plan, which will tie land use even closer to our transportation. As we're doing the transportation planning, we are looking at those areas where we know there's going to be greater levels of people, and therefore what kinds of public realm and infrastructure are needed to support them. So for example, in our town centers, we have the town center standards, which provide cycling facilities, larger sidewalks, rain gardens, and all of these key components that make it not only functional, but enjoyable to participate in cycling and walking within the town centers. And we want to continue that across the city. So looking at different standards for different areas that are context sensitive, that will help us progress our numbers for walking, cycling, and even transit use. As for the slow streets component, so we've recently, like in relation to our COVID work, we've recently passed a couple of reports that are looking at different streets where we can implement or where we need to implement different measures. We've been looking at various opportunities. And so as we move forward, we're making adjustments and we're trying to consider these options as we go forward.
Okay, thank you. I think there is another question from Hamed. How is government or other private organizations support startup businesses to use bicycles as a means of transportation for their services? So I guess maybe Renee again.
There we go, unmute. Yeah, so the about getting bicycle infrastructure in terms of bike, a bike share program and those types of things, we are looking at all of those options and again trying to drive towards that support. Part of this is putting these items into the plan as a way of setting the policy basis so that we can start to actually action these items. So that's where we're at right now, and then moving that forward, we will continue to try to bring those things along.
So Moreno, would you like to add something, comment on that?
Sorry, I've been very active in the chat.
Okay.
If you want to redo the question, but.
Yeah, the question was related to how is government or other private organizations support startup businesses to use bicycles as a means of transportation for their services?
Yeah, I think that was actually part of one that I was responding to in the availability of e-bikes. I think that's going to be really critical, especially in areas like Burnaby, where it's basically a U-shaped bowl, okay, from the Fraser to Burrard Inlet. So e-bikes are going to be really helpful in overcoming the hill challenge. And so provincially, subsidies for e-bikes like we provide for ZEVs, zero emission vehicles, I think will be really helpful. You know, the absolute cost of an e-bike is much, much, much less than a car. And yet the purchase is still presented as challenging or expensive, I think because the role of bicycles is not put on the same sort of platform as cars and in their utility or how functional they'll be. As people get that experience, you know, with an e-bike, your range is extended quite a bit, and half an hour of commuting can easily get you 10 kilometers, which is good for about 80% of commuting trips, and certainly more than half of all of our trips are met under 5 kilometers. So an e-bike can be a really good solution for that, and improving access through subsidies, for example, would be an important step forward.
Okay, I think there is a lot of questions coming in, so I am not sure if we're gonna be able to go and ask all the questions, but maybe we're gonna try to do our best to follow up with all of you for some of the questions that we are not able to answer. So it will be great, Moreno, Zoe, and Renee, that you can help us with that. And I see, for example, before we close, maybe there was a question related to neighboring municipalities. So this was from Craig. He was asking about, as transportation is inherently regional in nature, how are coordinating your work with neighboring municipalities?
Yeah, so with our public consultation component, as we're reaching out to the public, we are also reaching out to our core stakeholders, which includes TransLink and our neighboring municipalities and the region and all of these different components and stakeholders. So we are in the process of having conversations with them, working through any key network issues and all of those different pieces. And we'll be doing that as we move through this public consultation part. We've been really careful to state that these are proposals. The intent here is that they are subject to change. So we really want to get out there and say, these are the ideas. What else can we do? What else is available? What do we need to change or fix, or etc. So we're really looking forward to that input, and we'll be engaging with our neighbors as we go forward.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if we have maybe time for one more question. If we are entering a transit regressive era, how realistic is the 3-4 transit and active modes target for 2050?
So yeah, this is a good one. Because of this COVID pandemic, we have seen the drop in transit ridership. So there's some positives that are coming out of this now, that there's been some new studies released by the World Health Organization suggesting that transit is not in fact as scary as we thought it was initially. So that's a positive. The second thing is that we're instituting policies around masking and some of these other items to further combat the not only the perceived worries about transit, but also the actual real problems that can be associated with being in a crowded space. So as it relates to the target for 2050, the good news is that we said transit and active modes. So if we can get cycling and walking up, then maybe transit doesn't have to do as much of the heavy lifting as what Moreno had alluded to. Cycling can do more. The question really comes down to what that balance looks like. And I think as we go forward, we simply do not know the outcomes of the pandemic yet. So we are going to continue to move forward with the idea that we do need to support transit. We do need to support cycling and walking as well. And together, all three of those things can make that target achievable.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So as we are close to our end, I just wanted to mention that, well, first, I would like to thank Moreno, Zoe, Renee for your time, for the great presentations and the great conversation, interaction we have had with our participants. And also I would like to thank Tara, Kilim, Janet, that they are our co-hosts. They have helped organize this event along with me. And just to mention that it's very important, I think, in this time during COVID, what we are learning from the COVID pandemic and the need for recovery policies and implementation that needs to be, we need to make connections between health, between climate, between air pollution and the environment in general. So we have to really work together on these solutions that we need to link all these together to advance forward in a sustainable way. I also just wanted to briefly mention that we're going to be sharing the presentations as a PDF file, and the recordings for today's session and last night's session are going to be also be shared with all the participants. And with that, I would like to thank again all of you, and thanks for tuning in today and for this great time together virtually. Okay, thank you very much.